Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio, Radio for the Ready-Minded, the podcast for the prepared, with your hosts, Scott, Shane, and Paris. We are coming to you live on YouTube and Facebook. If you're with us, please hit the like button so the algorithm knows that we're out there and we're talking and we're discussing some amazing, cool things. So hit like and subscribe, share with everybody that you know. Tonight, we got a packed episode. We got some great things to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the things that we should stockpile before the tariffs start to hit. And in that line of thinking, one of the things we recommend that you stockpile on is your medicines. Now, we know that a lot of the manufacturing of medicines comes from overseas, and certain countries that are probably going to be tariffed pretty heavily. So hit up our friends at Jase Medical, Jase, jasemedical.com. Get your antibiotics there. Also and if you have daily medicines, get those daily medicines. Now, once you pick up your daily medicines and you use Prepper Talk as the code to get $10 off to get your antibiotic kit with the Jase case and your daily medicines, a stockpile of daily medicines, now then go take time to learn how to be more homeopathic, learn how to deal with herbs and get yourself healthier with stuff that's even more local and in your neighborhood, so that you can sustain that a little bit better than dealing with medicines. But we are excited to be here tonight live with you, and hope that you'll enjoy the show. So Scott, Shane, what are the things we need to hoard before the tariffs hit?
Well, go ahead, Scott. You breathed first.
I did breathe. I was like, oh boy. I was like,
you breathe first.
You breathe first, so you get to go first.
I was inhaling for a long statement, but it's interesting because historically, before taxes were imposed on the United States citizens, everything was raised to take care of roads and everything else primarily through tariffs and through bond funds and things like that. Nowadays, we're taxed heavily, right? And now tariffs are being used not to fund the government as much as to punish anyone who doesn't align with what our government currently wants. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me. I don't care. That's how I see it. There are places where tariffs can be great, but the fact that we're being quadruple taxed already and tariffs are coming, and some of them have been in effect for years, but more tariff increases are coming. And so that's going to drastically affect our purchasing power. That's where this conversation is coming from. Right now, you can get things still at regular, horrible prices. If you wait, they're going to get to twice as bad prices, right? Or maybe 3 times as bad. Every outlet I've looked into, everything that I've read, what's interesting to me is like, CEOs of all these companies that are like, yeah, we buy a lot of our stuff from Canada, or we buy a lot of our stuff from China. They're like, we're not going to pay that out of pocket. We're not going to pay those prices. We're passing that on. And the CEO of AutoZone is like, we're going to start upping our prices now to get ahead of it. So it's like, they're already taking action to start raising prices. So we're probably already seeing, I know I have been already seeing it. We're probably already seeing prices going up in preparation for the tariffs, but it's not just a few things that are going to get hit with these. The list is huge. I don't know if you guys have tracked this, but it's not a short list. And Ontario is now going to be banning imports from the United States and banning business contracts with American companies for services. For example, they're canceling their Starlink contracts for the entire province. They're canceling automotive imports and a bunch of other stuff. According to, I don't know if they call him a governor or what for Ontario, like he's just like, his press briefing was absolutely a cluster of anger and frustration. And he's like, fine, they're going to hurt us. We're going to hurt them back. Well, the funniest thing is like their oil, because they decided not to put their own pipeline across the lower portion of Canada and run it and allow it to run through the United States first, the tariff that we're going to impose is going to be pushed back on them for 80% of the oil that comes from Canada on that pipeline goes back to Canada. So they're just going to get a use tax basically of 25% added onto it. Plus they're going to lose out on all the other American benefits of trade. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But there's a huge list of things that are going to be affected, and we definitely need to make sure we're paying attention.
Yeah, it's potentially a little scary. I think that's more than tariffs is kind of where my mind goes. Potentially, I heard today that Trump did put the Canadian-Mexican tariffs on hold again for, I don't know if it's another month or what, but they did not start up today, from what I'm told, what I understand. And some people think he's going to, he's just threatening that they're not actually going to impose these tariffs. I think it's still wise to be prepared. And in addition to tariffs, there's a threat of inflation. It's already increasing. Jobless increase numbers are increasing. Unemployment's going up. There's new threats of recession, new indicators, where now the mainstream is actually reporting negative numbers. And I forget which statistic, but they've just reported negative numbers for the previous quarter. So we're already in the first, it's 2 quarters of negative GDP, I guess, is technically a recession. So apparently we've already had one. I think a lot of us believe we've been in recession for much longer than that. Obviously, the rich are not affected. The wealthy are not necessarily affected like us, middle and lower class. Not to say that any of you guys aren't in the upper class. I don't know. But there's a lot of things that are going to affect our prices. And I think let me take that back. I want to say we're only up from here, but there is a chance of deflation in some asset classes like real estate and so forth. But that's kind of some of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is, there's war happening, and I don't see that necessarily being resolved. And so just a lot of things that can drive prices up. Inflation, call it inflation or otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because it's like there's foods that are going to be affected because we get a lot of our produce from Mexico, but we get a ton also from like countries like Brazil and Nicaragua, like further south in Mexico. We get tons of food from elsewhere. We get almost all of our lumber comes from Canada or Brazil. And those are two.
Doesn't our meat come from Brazil too? A lot of meat.
A lot of it. Brazil, Australia, like we get a ton of stuff from all these other countries, and the tariffs are already imposed will continue. But what's interesting is it's going to hurt our neighbors in Canada and Mexico the most, because where are they going to sell those things to? Our international buyers are going to be like, screw it, I'm not buying from you guys anymore. I'm going to buy from Brazil more, right? So it's going to increase the cost of getting stuff here. It'll still increase the price, not as much as a 25% tariff, but it'll still increase the price. But it's the whole goal of a tariff is to level the playing field so that we can actually produce our own stuff. But the policies of the prior administrations have destroyed our infrastructure of being able to do that.
I think we get too much from outside of our country when we have all the resources that we would need to produce for ourselves most of the things. And that goes back to, just some of the things we've been talked about over the last several episodes. We can extrapolate from our personal life out to our national life and say, look, as a nation, we're outsourcing everything. We're not self-reliant as a nation right now. And so to me, as a little devil's advocate on the tariffs is like, look, we just want to say, hey, bring it back to America, people. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, one of the things I've heard from the administration is that if these countries want to bring manufacturing into the United States, open up plants here, give Americans jobs, the tariffs go away for them through that. So there's a way around it.
It's a long process.
I feel like there's probably going to be a little bit of a lag time. Obviously, you can't just build a manufacturing plant in a year. It takes a couple of years to build that and get all this jobs back to America. And by the time, honestly, it's kind of funny because by the time some of these companies get back to America, we may have a whole new election. And, going back to, there was a comment that somebody said here, and let's see, here it is. Oh, Sven Nielsen. Biden regime changed the stats for recessions, I'm kind of on the opinion that, it's like, wait a minute, are we really? Because we've been in a recession for a few years, but nobody wanted to admit it when Biden was in control. But now that Trump's in control, all the media is like, oh yeah, we're definitely in a recession now. So is it like, honestly, I feel like we've been in one.
Yep.
It's just now people are willing to admit it to try to get everybody to think that Trump's ruining our economy. And
in a sense, he kind of is, in that with all these government cuts he's going to be making, is going to make is going to hurt. Like, and he even said that himself. What we're doing is going to hurt, and it might pinch. I think will a lot more than what he's letting on.
Yep.
Well, I see what people
calls it that we're entering the golden age. Right?
Do you
guys know what the golden age really is?
It's refers to Greek mythology, golden age. Yeah.
Worship of who? Apollyon.
Apollyon. Okay, yeah.
Yep, the god Apollyon, right? False god. We don't believe that. I'm a Christian. These guys are Christians. We don't believe in any other god above our Heavenly Father. So yeah, but it's interesting because it's like, who do you serve? What we really need to focus on though is what can we produce ourselves, right? Because the powers that be, doesn't matter if you're left or right, they don't give us any reason. They don't care. They don't care about us, right? They don't care about any class other than their own. They're oligarchs, they're dictators, whatever you want to call them. They don't care about us. They care about what they're doing for power and what power and riches they can maintain, right?
Yeah. And one thing that you mentioned earlier, Scott, that I know I can't produce myself, are parts for my cars. Most of those are made overseas. Car parts come from, I don't know what percentage, but I'm sure it's extremely high.
Oh, huge.
Again, another reason why I own a Toyota, but still, that's high on my list. If your car needs some maintenance, if maintenance is due, I would say don't hesitate. Get it done. Just get it done. Get it taken care of.
Yeah.
Whatever.
A lot of them are manufactured in China. A lot of them are manufactured in Mexico, and a lot of them are shipped into Mexico, stamped, and then shipped into the United States, so that it appears it's from Mexico. Well, guess what? Now we're going to have that 25% tariff on Mexico. We're getting the price jacked up either way, right? And it's been tariffed twice, once to Mexico and once out of Mexico. So we're going to see the pinch on those products. So what do I say we should be doing? Exercising more, riding our bicycles more, right? If you don't have a bicycle, hurry and buy one off of Facebook Marketplace or your local Craigslist or wherever else, right? Your want ads. Buy everything used. First and foremost, if there's anything you need right now, get extras. Cost of rubber is going to go up. Cost of metals are going to go up. Cost of lumber is going to go up. Foods are going to go up. The nice thing, I checked on this because I was concerned about rice, but thankfully most of our rice comes from Thailand and India. So that's not as big an issue. But the 25% tariffs and these big tariffs that are also going to be specific towards certain items, they're going to affect us.
I think a big part of that as well is just the car market itself. There will be tariffs on imports. I don't know the details on that, but more of what I see happening right now is that, yes, new vehicles are way overpriced. They're way too much tech in them. They're just unaffordable, especially with the interest rates where they're at right now, right? So I think and I think it's already starting to turn, is that used cars are becoming more and more desirable for a lot of reasons, mainly that they're less expensive. And so I think, obviously new car sales have dropped dramatically. I think they'll continue to go down, but I don't think prices will come down much on new vehicles. I don't think they can. And so the used vehicle is going to be the higher demand vehicle, and prices won't come down as much on those as new vehicles. And so regardless, now I know interest rates are not great for an auto loan, but if you can buy a good used, I'm going to say Toyota, of course.
No, don't buy any used Toyotas, especially Forerunners.
Especially Forerunners or Tundras or Sequoias.
Well, I guess you can buy everything else. Don't buy Forerunners.
Because Scott is looking for one.
Don't say that.
So that's what I'm saying is regardless, the interest rates are not great now, but now is probably a good time to pick up a highly desirable vehicle because I don't think they're going to go down much, if at all, in price, especially used vehicles. That's my take.
They will. They have to. Like used vehicles, maybe not as much, but new vehicles they have to, because we're not selling enough in the car market. A car recession's coming before a housing recession hits.
I think it's
housing recession's on the edge already, but we're already starting to see a car recession, and it's because volume's just not moving of these new cars, right? But people's income isn't in a place to be able to afford these new cars. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They're outbuilding
Especially with interest rates,
our incomes. Yeah. So, and that's another thing that Trump says he's going to fix is the interest rates. But let's go back. Here's some of the areas from Canada we need to keep an eye on: wood, charcoal, aluminum, iron and steel appliances, cereal, flour, starches, milk, rubber, alcoholic beverages, carpets and other textiles, wool, animal hair products, yarns, umbrellas, walking sticks, seat sticks. I don't know what that's important.
Umbrella?
Whips. I don't know who buys whips. Photographic and cinematography goods for making movies and videos, right? I can't say cinematography. Anyways, printed books. A lot of our printing comes from Canada.
Really?
Cork products, cereals, paper products, processed fruits and nuts, tropical fruits. Canada, right? Greenhouses. We had somebody commenting on that earlier. The greenhouses in Canada, they're huge. Tropical fruits, tomatoes, onions, lettuce, cabbage, pickled foods, fruit, fertilizers, dairy products, eggs and honey, cotton, beer and hard liquor. And then into Mexico, it repeats those same items: the cereals, paper products, processed fruits, all the way down to the beer. Then it goes into coffee, tea, mate, spices, meat, fish, and seafood, sauces and seasonings. I didn't realize that Mexico is our number one importer for sauces in the United States. They all go through Mexico. Crazy. Avocados, raw sugar, fish and crustaceans, vegetable fats and oils, soaps.
You don't want vegetable oil anyway, so
wax candles, modeling pastes, glues, starches, dairy products. Like, it's crazy. And yet here we are stockpiling cheeses in Missouri for the apocalypse. I don't know. We have thousands and thousands of underground acreage that's devoted to stockpiling cheese in America. Put that on the market, people. Stop importing for 90 days and let's put some of the stuff back in the market. We don't need to be buying all this stuff from outside of the country. Our government's stockpiling it so that they can force the prices up to help the farmers. Guess what we need to do? Stop importing it, and that helps our farmers.
Yeah. All the more reason to look for American made, really American made, not stamped American made, bought from somewhere else.
That's what I'm excited about. More American made, literally, legally American made, the better.
Yeah. Another big thing that I've been seeing is, that we see coming from China are lithium batteries.
Yep.
It's, as a prepper, I'm looking to build a full solar system out of my property. And I'm still need to buy the batteries for it out there. I haven't done that yet. RV battery, those types of things, anything lithium that lithium batteries are a big deal. They really are. I mean, a lot of the electronics we buy as preppers from our flashlights that have rechargeable lithium batteries in them, all those electronics, those are all made in China. They I mean, even the best ones are made in China. And so, our ham radios, of course, the Baofangs, obviously.
Those are going to go up $100.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to double in price from $25 to $50 for the Baofangs, But, those types of things, I think it's smart to think a little deeper about, okay, what can I do now as opposed to waiting?
I think it's funny that Joseph put in here that, he put here that we should start stockpiling toilet paper. Here it is. Right? That's the common thing. I'll tell you what, though, you don't need to stockpile as much toilet paper if you install a bidet. I'm telling you.
You better hurry and install that bidet, because guess where they come from?
China.
China.
Here in Utah, northern Utah, we have 2 enormous toilet paper manufacturing facilities, including as well as diapers. So typically toilet paper is made locally, right? So
where does the paper come from?
Well, the U.S. has a lot of trees. We have a lot of trees, but that paper a lot of it does come from Canada.
Most of our paper comes from Canada. All of the trees, like it's crazy how much we've intentionally outsourced to Canada that we could keep just doing ourselves. Have you guys ever seen how they grow lumber trees in Japan?
Mm-mm.
I forget the name of it. It's fascinating. They basically take a tree and then they train the top branches to just grow straight up. And so they have one big tree and it's got like 40 shoots coming out of the top of it. They harvest those shoots that come out of the top of it and they don't have to replant the tree below. And that's where they get their hardwood. It's phenomenal, or at least a lot of their hardwood. It's phenomenal. There's things we could be doing, but we need to have been doing them for years to be able to take advantage of it now. And now we're put in a position where we're going to be stuck. So yeah, your fruits and vegetables, stockpile some of those right now. And that means, honestly, get some freeze dried or dehydrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not a whole other options. Go to our website, go to preppertalkradio.com, and on the homepage or any of the pages, there's a preparedness challenge that will take you to one of the best, healthiest freeze-dried companies out there. And he has this cool program that you can actually run through at the same time and learn a lot of things and the essentials for prepping, but also get at the end of the course, everything you paid into the course, you can get back in food storage. Pretty sweet deal. We had Marcelo on about 8 months ago, I think. But you can't just all of a sudden have a garden, especially with seasons. And we're in the middle of winter here in Utah, so we can't just pop out a garden in the backyard.
Pretty soon,
start growing all my own vegetables. But you can buy a whole bunch of seeds now, and you can do a hydroponic or aquaponic system in your garden, in your house, or in your garage. But definitely the things that you use a lot of, get more of. Like your beans, those are going to go up. Your meats, that's all going to go up. Like your vegetables, they're all going up.
Yeah, things like they said frozen goods, not that those are healthy anyways, but frozen goods, pastas, tuna. Where do we get our tuna from? Tuna is good and healthy. And it's clearly comes from out of what I think this is going to do is force a lot of people. Like I know a lot of companies have outsourced to America, outside of America, because they can pay for cheaper labor. And I think we need to bring some stuff back home. I mean, there's some good things that can come of this. I feel like if we can just get through the tough lull of the change, then I think we'll be able to come out of it stronger. That's, when I sit down on a micro level, when I sit down with the family, I'm say, look, you're going to have to change some of the way you spend your money. Otherwise you're not going to be able to make it financially. You're not going to be able to retire. You're going to stay in debt for the rest of your life. And when they have to tighten the belt and stop doing some things so that they can free up some cash flow to start paying off the debts and start investing for their future, there's a minute where it's tough. Creating those new habits is tough. And I think that right now with the Doge, what they're doing is getting in there and saying, look, we need to cut some of this fraud, waste, and abuse. We need to cut back on some of these things. And the only way for a government to be able to spend and the only way for the money that they spend is all from either taxes or tariffs. And so are we going to see a hidden tax of our own because the tariffs are so high now because all these countries are going to say, you know what? Or are we going to see a couple of these countries like we've seen that say, hey, what can we do to work around this? And what can we, I feel like they're scared because they know Trump will do it. They know he'll do it. And they're coming in negotiating now and saying, okay, let's negotiate this. So this might end up, I feel like what do they say? When the dust settles, I feel like the dust is still in the air a little bit with some of these countries about what they're going to end up finalizing. And we might see some people come to the table and say, hey, look, we're willing to do some things. I know, Scott, weren't you saying something about Japan coming to the table with a deal?
Yeah. So in February, they just did a trademark or a land. I don't know what kind of deal it's called, but basically a $1 trillion reinvestment deal into the United States to bring more manufacturing here. Right. What's funny is like Toyota, which is a company we love, was one of the companies that's like, Japan, you better do something because this is going to hurt. And Japan's like, yeah, we'll step up because they know we're one of their biggest trade partners.
Mm-hmm.
We buy more like Japan, China, like we buy so many cars. What's funny is based on track record, the best two auto manufacturers that are imported to the United States are Toyota, followed by Honda. Well, the prices are going to go up on both of those and the subsidiary car lines along those, Acura, Lexus, right? Those are going to go up, but then also the parts for replacements are going to go up. Well, the nice thing is if you buy one of those or an older one of those, they just run longer, better, especially if you maintain them well. Except for 400, just stay away from those no matter what. Especially the 2000, 2001s, those that just stay away from those completely.
God wants his pick of the litter there.
I do. I really do.
I did see a news program the other day how China has been working around some of these tariffs. They're actually Chinese business owners have been moving to Cambodia, where there aren't any or minimal tariffs, and so we know we get probably most of our clothing from China and Taiwan and those countries around there, in the Philippines and so forth, and so obviously Cambodia is producing more now, but and things will probably continue to move and change and adapt but even simple clothes, we've been taking cheap clothes for granted. I mean, a $5, $10 t-shirt, that's pretty darn cheap. Typically we're 20, 30, 40 bucks for a t-shirt, which is ridiculous. But I would expect the price of clothes to go up, especially, if they have to be made here in the US, which I would prefer. And I would prefer to pay a little bit more for a better quality shirt that lasts longer, better quality clothes. I mean, so many aspects. What we've been seeing here, though, over the last couple of weeks, ever since the threat of tariffs, is, we could talk about gold and silver a little bit, right? We could, with the effects of what that's potentially had on the price of gold and silver. Yeah.
What's interesting is, like, as you look at all the different things that are going to be affected, one of the conversation pieces in our live conversation that's going on in the chat, talk about buying chickens, right? You can get chicks for anywhere from $4 to $6, depending on where you are in the United States. And then they've got to obviously mature before they start laying. But what's interesting is with the major culling that they've done of chickens, the price for a dozen eggs now, it's ridiculous not to own your own chickens as an alternative or get quail, right? There's some smaller eggs. You don't need as big an area. They eat less food, but they're also really tasty when you process your quail. Or you can get ducks. I'm going to go ducks when I get my land. I'm getting some ducks. Bigger eggs, healthier, more protein per egg, but I can do an omelet with 3 eggs instead of 4, right? There's pros and cons to everything, but look at what you can do to produce on your own property. Also, beware, we're going to be seeing more food science hitting the shelves. What I mean by that is we saw the Impossible Burger for years already hit. There's going to be more synthetic and lab-grown meats hitting the market because of these tariffs. And one of my fears is that these tariffs are partly to create an edge for companies like that who are already in the United States to produce more synthetic foods, which are just even worse for us.
Yeah.
We've got so many just chemical compounds in our food already. We've got to get back to making our own meals from scratch to get safer foods.
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, this is a great point. Joseph pointed out, also consider your pets. Pet food prices are going to go up, right? Pet medications are shipped in from overseas. Those are going to go up. Definitely keep an eye out and stock up as best you can. Ivermectin prices are going to go up for sure because those are made overseas. There's a couple places here in the U.S. that do it, but yeah, it's stock up.
Absolutely. Oh, another thing that's on my list, high on my list, medical supplies. We talked, a little bit about, obviously, most of our medications are actually made overseas. Of course, we try not to advocate for those, but we need those things. We're kind of living that type of lifestyle where people need their medications, and we talk about Jace and having antibiotics. Because if you get sick and you need something quick, I mean that it works. We definitely advocate for natural means, but sometimes you just got to have that stuff. But also just medical supplies in particular. As preppers, we got to have our first aid kits, and that's one of my goals. I think I mentioned before is that this year I'm going to stock up on a really good supply of just standard medical supplies, bandages, of all types, and just in general. And I started ordering some stuff the other day. It took about a week. I ordered some from Rhino Rescue. It's something you see on Facebook, and they had a cool little kit, so I tried that out. It came from China. I'm thinking, oh, this has got to be an American company. No, it came from China.
Wow.
And so I would prefer to buy American, but most of these products are going to come from overseas. Your 4x4s, your gauze pads, your roller gauze, all those types of things. And so they can be had pretty cheap, especially on Amazon, right?
Yep.
And so I've bumped that up on my list to make those purchases, I guess, earlier than later.
Well, there's a lot of people that do that drop shipping stuff, and they go to Alibaba and they get stuff super cheap and bring it over here and sell it for a high price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that's going to be as good a deal as it has been moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I look at that company, Temu, and they're going to get completely hammered because all their stuff's going to get tariffed. So it's like, oh, you're buying a $3 t-shirt. Well, guess what? Now that $3 t-shirt's a $30 t-shirt. And it already takes 2 weeks for that stuff to get shipped to you anyways.
Yeah.
One of the cool things, like the t-shirts that we sell on our website are sourced from India or Mexico.
Mm.
So I'm like, hoping we're getting a lot of Indian shirts coming in, because if you want to buy a shirt from preppertalkradio.com, go get one now.
Seriously,
we may have to up our prices depending on suppliers. But yeah, everything's going to get affected. And I think the thing that's going to be the best for people to do is just learn to live with less. Like, because the things that you buy, the things that you own, truly own you. So the less that you're having to maintain and take care of, the more time you have, time freedom, right? Then you can also take care of improving or reducing food scarcity by trying to grow some yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're selling, I'm not going to be growing my garden, but I'm really tempted, and I've wanted to do this for years. I'm tempted to put up a sprout growing station in my house and start doing microgreens just for the benefits of having it. Because even beyond sprouts, it's like I can have sprouts in 7 days. That's food in 7 days.
Yeah, you don't even need a light source, really.
Yeah. And you can get those over at any hardware store. You don't have to buy the greenhouse ones. Look online and look at the greenhouse lights, and then find the frequency comparison in industrial lighting, and it's a third of the price to a fourth of the price.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about, also another aspect of this, is that everything takes time, right? We talk about, tariffs, how it's going to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. That is going to take time. But it also made me think it's going to take time for me to build particular skills.
Yep.
Right. I've been working on my gardening skills for a number of years, and obviously still have a long ways to go. But other skills in particular, I had a plumber come to my house not long ago and realized, boy, after that, I'm going to change my career to plumbing. I tell you, just before what they charge me, but which just tells me that, okay, I need to learn. And I've done plumbing before and I do okay. I don't like it. It scares me, right? I don't want to have a leak. I want to be confident that, 30 years down the road, my tub's not going to leak. So I hired a plumber friend to come connect this tub for me. It blew me away, the cost. And so I should have been a little more assertive, taken a little more time to really just try and do it myself and save several $100s, which could have gone toward my medical supplies, But I think that's one thing that I really need to focus on, because dollars are going to be more scarce. And I hate to have a scarcity, mindset, and you talk about, Scott, about how we need to try and live on less. I totally agree. We are very wasteful. We use way too much electricity, but that's the American way, right? That's the way we've lived. That's why people come here, so we can be wasteful, right? And we should be able to live however we want. I mean, that's the truth. And part of this agenda, part of what is happening, I believe, is an agenda that forces us to live in smaller spaces, to give up things and give up rights and freedoms and the ability to waste if we want to, right? It's a free country. It's a free world, right?
Yeah.
We have free choice. And so that, I think, is part of it. Is, yes, we should choose for ourselves and not be compelled to live on less. I totally agree. I could live on so much less electricity, and I do not like waste. So my 2 bits.
Well, go ahead, Paris.
No, I can agree 100%, because I'm trying to help people. Like, for example, if you make so much money and you spend it all, because you're just, consumerism is really a pandemic, in my opinion. I feel like credit cards are a psyop too, like keeping people a slave to the debt cycle and keeping people a slave to that consumption rat race hamster wheel cycle is giving everybody where we are. Like, that's why we feel like we have to hoard things before the terror. Like, if people had what they needed, they lived on what they needed, and now I'm not saying we can't have the things we want as well. Like, there's some wants that are legit. We need to have wants, but the Stoics say that, people who, like you said earlier, Scott, the more things that you have, the more you're a slave to those things.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I mean, I was just thinking about my time freedom, and I've committed myself to a 30-year mortgage. Like, what did I do? Of course I got to have someplace to live as part of the world, but at the same time, like, boy, I wish I could just build a house and be done with it, right? And like the old cabin, it wasn't very big or whatnot, but like I had a car that anyways, there's just the lifestyle that we have right now creates that consumption and creates that obligation to stay in that lifestyle, to stay in that cycle. And the more we can kind of think about breaking free from that and buying back our time and buying back our, just to be able to sit and ponder and think and just be free and from the rush and the hubbub of consumerism, that's to me a huge benefit. And I feel like, if we can get to the point where, yes, do we need to hoard some things? I don't know about hoarding, but we do need to stockpile. We do need to have a storage. There's some wisdom in having a storehouse. And is my fridge going to go out at some point and I need to buy a part from China and I should have bought it today? How do I know? Like what do we need to really hoard before the tariffs hit? Like, who knows? What's funny though, is I shared with you guys earlier that I got that text message from another preparedness company that said, hey, before the tariffs hit, make sure you buy a bunch of beans and rice. So there's a genuine feeling right now that we need to stock up before things might happen. And will it happen? Who knows? But the idea is, regardless of what happens, we need to be the kind of people that are prepared. We're not panicked. The sky is falling. We can breathe. We have excess we have excess storage in our resources, in our cash, in our food storage. If you have extra, you're not going to be strapped and making decisions out of frustration or scarcity or fear. And you're going to be in a better place to make good decisions. I think that when we make decisions, for example, if somebody has no money in savings and they lose their job, they might have to take the first thing that comes along. Yep. And it may not be what they need, but if they had 5 or 6 months worth of cash that they could pay their bills, they could go out and really find the good job, the one that they would really be benefit their family and their own mental health and their own ability to provide and produce. And that's the same thing with all things in life. I think we need to take a step back and say, why? What's funny too is that like rice and beans you can store, but some of the things they're telling us, if you do a Google search right now, what are some things that I should hoard or stock up on before the tariffs? It's like avocados, tomatoes. Like, bro, you can't store avocados. Like, what are they? Like, I buy an avocado on Saturday, and on Sunday it's already ready to throw away. Like, I can't. How do you stockpile avocados? You know,
I assume you
So
could
there's some-
freeze dry them, but I haven't tried.
right? So there's some things to just keep in mind that yes, we do need to have a stockpile. We do need to have storage, but don't be skies falling, panic, buying stuff either. So there's just that balance, I would say.
Yeah.
Just make sure you keep that balance. Am I going to do a little bit of inventory and see what I should probably get now before the prices go up? Yeah, I'm going to. But if I find that I don't really need anything and I just would buy it just to get it in my storage, I don't know if that's the best thing either, but just make sure you thoughtfully consider what you really need and what would be of value to you and your family, and then get it.
I think kind of my final thoughts is that probably a good time right now to kind of reconnect with family, friends, old neighbors, old employers, just especially if you're maybe concerned about your employment, where things are going, so that, they'll think of you if they have a need, so you just have some more resources when things get tough.
Yeah, one of the things I think I shared on the last episode, we talked about how I went shopping a couple weeks ago, and the lady asked me, like, "Do you only shop once a week? Do you ever run out of anything during the week and you need to come back?" I'm like, "No, I just go shopping once a week." And I said, in fairness, I'm a prepper, so I have a storehouse where I rotate through things. So if I do end up forgetting something during my weekly run to the store, I just pull it from my storehouse and then I just add it to the list. I have two, I told her 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is just right, So she's like, "I like that. 2 is," and it was funny because she said, well, now I got to find out where you live so I can come to your place. Well, yeah, part of me is like, heck no, you crazy? Like, go get your own stuff. But the other part of me is like, you know what? What if I'm that guy for my community? That's kind of rewarding because I have extra. I have lived my life in such a way that I have a little bit extra and I can share with my neighbors. And of course, you want to be judicious about that. But the idea is that if you have enough extra that you can share with others in need, that puts you in a position of strength, in a position of service. And God says, Christ in the New Testament, they say, if you're in the service of your fellow man, you're only in the service of God. And if you're in the service of God, what's the saying? If you want to find your life, lose your life.
Find yourself, lose yourself to God.
Yeah, lose yourself in the service of others, and you can find yourself. And so there's some wisdom in that. I feel like, we don't just need to always be this, have the stuff and be this, we're going to keep it ourselves and not share. Sometimes it's important to realize, hey, you know what? Maybe if I share, something miraculous will happen and I'll still have enough because I was willing to give and I was willing to share and serve others.
Awesome. Oh, so as we get ready for the pinch, I don't feel like I'm going to feel it as much because I've been prepping for so long. And here's some things I've learned. Canned foods last 4 to 5 times longer than you think.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be 4 to 5 years longer than they say on them. Boxed foods, give it a year past the expiration date before things start turning. But honestly, wheat, that stuff's eternal. It just doesn't go bad if you store it right, keep it dry. Like
honey as well.
I made tortillas from scratch the other day. It's actually quite easy. I've done more biscuits lately. I need to get back into doing bread. Before this podcast today, I was actually upstairs making sugar cookies with my daughter for school. Part of her schooling is doing baking activities. That's part of our curriculum that we chose because we do homeschool. So as the resident teacher right now, it was a lot of fun to do that. Stressful at times, trying to keep fingers from getting chopped off and stuff like that, and kids from falling off the countertop, which they shouldn't have been on. But, life is life. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you this, the more I live simply and utilize my kids with me in everything we do, we're able to live bigger and better. Meaning our quality of life has nothing to do with what we're spending our money on and everything to do with how we spend our time together. And remember that as things get weird, as things get tough. I mean, tariffs are going to come and go. Financial times are always tough and then good and then tough. And then like we live in a cyclical society and cyclical world where our personal economy may be completely opposite of the global economy, and we could be crushing it while the rest of the world is struggling. And it balances out. We go through times of feast and famine. But when you work together as a family or as a unit, as a group, you can outlast just about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do the podcast, is because I've gone through those times. I've gone through long times of unemployment where our food storage is what saved us. Our home store is what saved us. Things that people aren't thinking about that are also important, right? We've talked about food. We've talked about auto parts, but your soaps, your detergents, your cleaners, your toothpastes, your deodorants, those are all shipped in. So think about those things and also look at natural solutions you can use as well. And if you don't have the money to get more stuff now, you do qualify at that point for food pantries and food banks. Get help there. They're happy to help you. There's what I love, especially about the one, like where we live, we've got one in our city, and they are absolutely helpful. And they even ask sometimes, do you know anyone that needs help? Is there anyone else that needs help that we could give you extra for them? Or you can send them down. Let them know we've got more. And if you have tons, if you got extra, I would challenge you to think about the people in your life who have been struggling or might be struggling soon, and maybe set something aside for them. Surprise them with some home-cooked meals, or surprise them with a bag of groceries. As things get tight and as things get a little weird and wild over the next few months, remember that, staying ready-minded is also a way to help you live life less stressfully.
Yeah, there's some wisdom in that. I feel like there's a lot of things that you can look at. Do an inventory in your house. What is something that might break down, or that's possible to break down? Car parts for sure, maybe appliance parts, and definitely food, other things, perishables, consumables. And you might do a search. Hey, where is this particular drink, deodorant, toothpaste manufactured? Do a little search, find the resources, and find out what's coming from outside the country, and maybe do a search and say what's inside the country, and start shifting our dollars towards things that are already in the country and buying things that are already available. So there's I feel like we could do a little bit. We can start voting with our dollars and start buying more American right now, as much as we can, and see what we can do to help that process move forward. Because I feel like we have gotten so dependent on other countries, and now this tariffs are hitting. I think it's time to start thinking more locally, and even if it's just like, I would really want to go to my local farmers market and really support some of the local farmers. I want to start buying. I live in a town where there's farmers that have cows and beef and meat and chickens and all kinds of stuff. I could probably hit up a couple local places for cheaper steaks and other things, like, why not start looking around and see if we can support some of these local farms. We've got, we had AJ Richards on our show, was it Farm Fresh? Farmfresh.io, I think. That was From the Farm. Sorry, From the Farm.
Yeah.
From the Farm is another app or a
What's cool
website
is
you can
like
go from the
his
farm.org,
that
and it'll
website
show you
gives
different local
yeah,
places.
shows you the local places you can buy your meats from the actual farmers, right? Or from the ranchers. And the cool thing about that is also it gets you in touch with smaller networks where you can get better pricing, especially during shortages. And you can also do large orders with, put a group together. I got a guy up the street. He keeps inviting me to join him in buying half a cow. But my family just doesn't eat enough meat to justify it. I would love to do it. But then there's this comment, and I want to say thank you to Practical about this. I keep forgetting. It's on my list of something to get, but box foods and in as well as other foods, one of the best things to stop spoilage is vacuum sealing your food. Right, it'll last longer in the like your meats and stuff will last longer in the freezer that way. Your dried foods definitely will give you a couple extra years on them by vacuum sealing them. I don't keep anything long enough that I really, really need it, but it would help with some food spoilage. I know a lot of people throw out a lot of produce, right? If you're going to buy produce, make sure you're eating it all. Simple little things. And if you guys are listening to the podcast and are wondering what are all the comments in here, hop on our YouTube, go subscribe, and read the chat. There's some phenomenal information. We get some of our best content from our Ready family that's posting in there all the time. And also join the group over on Facebook, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance, because there's been some great comments dropped of amazing wisdom the last couple of days as well. I mean, always there is, but just the last few days, I'm like, holy cow, that's great. Hadn't thought about that.
That's awesome. Well, we're coming up on the hour, guys. Any final thoughts?
Well, I guess much of my final thought would just be that make plans, pace, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency, make your plans, make your backup plans, make your tertiary plans, made your, and just move forward on it. That's only way to make, to make things happen is to write them down and whittle away at them, as slow or as quickly as you can.
100% agree with that. Make plans, take action on the plans that you're making. I know you just said, whittle away on them, but like that is the hugest thing. If you really want peace in your preparedness journey, take action. And if you want to get a lot done, take massive action. Like sacrifice some things that aren't as important right now and take massive action. And you will be so glad you did.
Yeah. Because, we all say that when's the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. And the next best time is today. Well, don't be the guy that your next week or a year from now self says, I wish I would have done that a year ago. Find out some of those types of things and just find out what you want to do today to make the difference and change so that in a year from now, you look back and you say, I'm so glad I did that. And with that, we're going to say thank you so much for listening to Prepper Talk Radio, Radio for the Ready-Minded. You've been live with us. We've had a fantastic crew on tonight. We've even had some new folks that I haven't seen before and come on the show and say hi and pop in and just jump right in like they're part of the family. We have some regulars that come on and we have some great conversations. It's what's fun for me is to see you and I, the three of us having a conversation, and there's a whole different conversation going on in the chat with all of our with everybody who's with us live, and we have a ton of really good fun. We had some new people in tonight, so welcome the new people. If you're listening to this from a podcast, take a minute and see if you can schedule a time to come visit with us Wednesday nights Wednesday nights at 6:00 Mountain. See if you can schedule carve out an hour in the coming weeks to visit with us and be with us live. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to say hi and have you say hi. Back to a couple weeks ago, somebody said, this is the first time I've made it to a live. I get to see what you guys look like.
Sorry, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know if that's a good thing. Yeah, exactly, Shane. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Now you know what you look like. Anyways, just wanted to also remind everybody to go visit our friends to support the show over at survivalfrog.com. If you go to survivalfrog.com, there's a myriad of survival items, prepper items, food storage, all kinds of great resources and tools. In fact, I didn't even know they had a jumper cable product. And Scott shared that with us a couple of weeks ago, a couple of episodes ago, that he had that. And I was like, dang, I need to get over there and see what they have, because they are coming out with some great things. But use code PrepperTalk10, the number 10, PrepperTalk10 to get 10% off, and support the show and support our good friends over at Survival Frog. Thank you again for being with us tonight, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great night. Take care.
See you next week.